it's interesting that and I'm sure it has to do with the nature of injuries and all those things, but man, there's been some people that seem like they're out of the hospital within a week or two. So I think this is one of the first stories where somebody's been in, quite a long time. So it really kind of speaks to the severity.
Yeah, and I thought, man, I was like, man, when am I going to get to go home?
Yeah.
You
So you
I was
were
ready to go
mentally
home.
ready to go before physically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's a good point that you made. I was mentally ready,
yeah.
because when you go home, then reality sets in,
So,
and you're like,
so at what
oh.
point do they start rehab?
They started right away, because
Yeah.
I like I mentioned, I was in ICU about a week and a half, As soon as the room opens up in rehab, they send you right away. So they start moving you,
Yeah.
As soon as we can, and you start, doing mobility, they start doing weightlifting, trying to get you stronger, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So you were at East Campus at Loma Linda for rehab, or
actually, East Campus wasn't there yet.
Oh, okay.
When I got injured, I was at the main hospital.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that was at East Campus was the outpatient therapy, and that's where I went for I want to say for about 2 years. I was there. Yeah.
And do you feel like it really helped?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know I go back and I talk to my mom about like how pushy these physical therapists were when I was an inpatient. I'm like, no, you got to do it on your own. You got to figure it out. And I'm like, I'm in a wheelchair. I need help.
Yeah.
At that time, right? But even going to outpatient rehab, that really helped me to get stronger. It was when I was an outpatient when I started driving. And
Wow.
I would take myself to my therapy appointments, and they even worked with me like, how are you going to get into your vehicle? What's easier? How do you load the chair in? My parents bought me or helped me get my first vehicle after I got injured. It was a F-150. It was a truck. So
Yeah, you needed to be strong to get up in there, huh?
yeah. So I learned a certain way how to get in from meeting other guys that had spinal cord injuries, and then once I was done with outpatient rehab, I learned how to get in a different way, a lot easier, but using my strengths. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's the reason I ask is, not to, to delve into the quality of the care at Loma Linda by any means, because they're top rate. But just in the stories that we've heard on Walk and Roll Live, that there are stories that we've heard where they're out of the hospital within a week or two, and it's like, good luck. They didn't get peer support, they didn't get anything. So it's interesting to listen from story to story how different that can be, and how that can kind of set you up for life. I mean, I think in addition to the physical rehabilitation and the training you got, I think that sets the tone and helps you kind of, as you were talking about them really pushing you to help you know what your limits are. Right?
Yeah.
And what
absolutely.
you're capable of.
Yeah.
Sure, that was invaluable.
Yeah, at the moment you're like, man, these people are like on me, but
they're torturing
like
me.
you're saying, I was very fortunate to have a team like that, that was very supportive, that were willing to push me, to my limits, because that's what's ultimately going to make you independent, once you start, living your life after the injury, right, post injury.
So. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I know you through your experience through Loma Linda, through Possibilities, that's where I met you when you were playing basketball for the Rolling Bears, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But all of those things kind of set you up to help you realize that there is a life after this disease or injury. I'm sorry, and where I think a lot of people, and rightfully so, something like this happens, and you were at that age where I'm sure you were beginning to think about, what is my life going to be? You're into your teen years, and and life on your own is right around the corner. Now all of a sudden that's interrupted. So what are your thoughts about that? What
Oh
was your
yeah,
mindset?
absolutely. I think in inpatient rehab in the hospital, when I found out like, hey, it's most likely you won't be able to walk again. You start thinking, you have a lot of time in the hospital. I'm like, man, what's my
Yeah,
life going to look like? Am I going to be able to have you know, uh, am I going to be able to get someone, married to someone who's going to
yeah,
love me for me,
yep,
or what's that relationship going to look like? Am I going to be able to live on my own independently? Was a big one too,
yep,
you know. And yeah, and that's what they're there to help you, to get you ready for, to live an independent life, and yeah, kind of, put you on the right path.
Next up, we're going to check in with Luis Otomoro, Advocacy and Triumph. Luis taught us about perseverance, walking us through his recovery from an incredible oil rig accident. Man, that was inspiring. Go back and listen to the whole episode if you want to check that out. And his work as an ambassador for the Triumph Foundation.
I agree, because there's so many difficulties with people trying to park, go someplace, and find a reasonable accommodation. And people too easy to argue with each other and judge each other.
Yep.
Someone like Eric and I trying to get out of the car, and they're saying, well, you're too young to be disabled. You should be a senior citizen. That's not true. Disability comes in all ages and flavors, and it can be anybody.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Eric?
Yeah.
I got a good saying for those with disability that try to knock other people with disabilities. Before you decide to throw a rock at somebody, maybe they should throw a bunch of rocks at themselves first.
Yeah. Just be a little more reflective, right?
Exactly. And like I tell people as an ambassador is, look, it's not your job to police these things.
Yeah.
It's the job of the police. Let the police officer make that determination, because that's their job. They're trained to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So let them do that. If you see something that is suspect that you're unsure of, call the local police department. Have their number in your speed dial. Call and report it. Absolutely report it.
Yeah.
But don't go and do something about it. You're not the police. You're not a vigilante. You can get your head busted.
Yeah.
There are people that will, even though you're in a wheelchair, they will swing on you because they think that you're getting into their business. Stay away from that. Avoid it.
Yeah.
Let people be. But report, and let the officer make the determination.
Yeah, a good point. And I think on top of that, you just don't know. You just don't know what that person is going through. You mentioned a pacemaker, and that's just one of probably hundreds of things that you're still able to walk, but you still need, to have that placard in that spot.
Exactly. And like I try and teach people, call it accessible parking. I'm real big into saying the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people, don't use handicap for one, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Not a good word to use. It's accessible parking, not disabled parking, not handicap parking, not whatever. Just call it accessible parking. You don't have to say wheelchair accessible, just accessible.
Yeah.
And that's good enough.
Absolutely.
Keep it simple, keep it easy. Because it might be your grandma, who has a hip problem.
Mm-hmm.
Or grandpa's got a pacemaker, or somebody else has a wheelchair, or a veteran who's an amputee.
Yeah.
You never know.
or has
And
chronic
it's not
pain,
your place to ask.
even chronic pain from a military injury. You just don't know. So let's